Welcome to episode 4 of the Appalachian Roundup. Today we're going to talk about the Mountain Valley Pipeline and a Teen Vogue article that highlighted the ways that people are resisting it. What is the Mountain Valley Pipeline? The Mountain Valley Pipeline is a 303-mile long, 42-inch in diameter structure meant to move natural gas that's extracted from the northern panhandle of West Virginia through all the way through south, all the way through the state of West Virginia, across the state of Virginia, and into North Carolina, where it exits that pipeline. And the pipeline has been in the works for a number of years now. It's taken billions of dollars more and years longer than expected because of the opposition to it. The pipeline crosses into the Jefferson National Forest, the George Washington National Forest. It goes under the Appalachian Trail, under the Blue Ridge Parkway, and crosses some 2,000 different bodies of water. And there's so that's basically what this pipeline is. Equitrans Midstream Corporation is the company that was formed to build this pipeline. And the pipeline and the company have been opposed from the get-go for a variety of reasons. But they boil down to three, I think, that we can think about here. One is the environmental issue. And this has, crossing all of these waterways, it's endangering the water sources for a number of different communities, as well as the habitats of a number of different species of animals. And so it's kind of, it's created the situation, plus investment in future emissions. Okay, and that's not really the type of future that we need, future carbon emissions. And so it's in many ways, environmentally and with climate change the way it is, the wrong step for many, many people. Another issue for a lot of people has been, although it's not been talked about in this way, but it's really like a class issue. It's about who benefits from this mostly and who's going to pay the cost of it. And, but that really is a class issue. And so who's going to benefit from it primarily are the wealthy investors, the people who put up the billions of dollars to build the corporation, the billions of dollars to build the actual structure itself. Who's going to pay the primary cost? I mean, that's going to be, we're talking about a pipeline that's going through West Virginia. West Virginia is one of the poorest states in the United States. And so it's primarily going to impact the poorest people in the United States. It's going to cross Southwest Virginia, which is, again, the poorest area or the poorest region of the state of Virginia, part of Appalachia, all very poor relative to the whole country. And so it's going to be passing through, and any leakages and so forth are going to most impact those communities. And so the primary costs are going to be borne by the poorest people, and the primary benefits are going to be reaped by the wealthiest. And that's really a class issue, and that was something that was primarily, or sort of drove a lot of the opposition. The third issue has been really like land rights. There's been a lot of people who had their land through the power of eminent domain just taken from them. I mean, the government stepped in, basically, and in the name of this corporation, effectively took land and gave it to them so they could build this pipeline. And now, eminent domain is meant to be used ideally from the perspective of taking land for the public good, but it seemed more like for private benefit and not for the public good. Since a lot of people had their land taken, that's been one of the most prominent issues written about in the media. A woman who had the pipeline go through a section of her property was quoted as saying this: "It was the shock of a lifetime," it says. "When we looked at where the pipeline was going, it was right through the middle of our farm, which we spent the past 40 years building, preserving, and stewarding, coming within 50 feet of the house. And when we talked to neighbors to the right and left of us who are on the same route, it was like, we've got to get together and fight this." And so, land issues has been one of the central driving reasons behind the opposition. So these three reasons kind of encapsulate, the main motivations that people that inform why people oppose this. Now, the opposition to this pipeline has really attacked it from two different levels. At the sort of top level has been at the level of the courts, at the level of the permits and law and regulations at the federal and state level. And this has involved, actors like the Sierra Club, Joe Manchin, Senator Joe Manchin from West Virginia, Senator Shelley Capito from West Virginia. It's involved, a number of different local organizations. And basically, what they've done is sued um, either the corporation, Equitran Midstream, or sued the various regulatory agencies for failing to uphold the standards and laws and permitting regulations. Here very recently, because Joe Manchin had really pushed on Valley Pipeline moving again and finished, a number of different organizations have sued, primarily in the Fourth Circuit of Appeals, because the Fourth Circuit of Appeals has been a fairly friendly environment for those who oppose the pipeline. The Fourth Circuit of Appeals has agreed with the opponents and said, look, the permitting agencies didn't even follow through with what they were supposed to do. Like the EPA, for example, which is meant to protect the environment, didn't actually follow through with what it said it was, what it's actually required to do. And so the permit given for the pipeline has been revoked. And that's kind of where we stand at this moment. Now, where this Teen Vogue article comes into play is it kind of zooms in on this lower level of resistance or opposition to the pipeline. And this is at the level of at the local level, at where the pipeline is being built, and people who are actively there on the ground, trying in some ways to oppose, resist, or protest against the building of the pipeline. The Teen Vogue article, the writer of it travels to Southwest Virginia and kind of checks everything out and talks about the camp a little bit. But he primarily focuses his article on interviewing Russell Chisholm and a person named Acre. And Acre is an anarchist who was one of the primary tree sitters. Acre and Robin were basically sitting in trees for 3 years to prevent the building of the pipeline. And Russell Chisholm he's been a key face of the opposition locally. He represents a number of local organizations, and he's quoted in a number of different news articles over the past number of years. And so he's just like a highly quoted face, and Acre is one of the sort of key activists themselves who are on the ground, in a much more sort of bodily way, putting their body out there to stop the machinery, in a nonviolent way, I should say. The thing about it, as I was reading this article, it made me think about the limitations of nonviolent resistance, particularly given the stakes that are at play. And I'm also reading another book by Andreas Malm called How to Blow Up a Pipeline, and it's published by Verso, I believe. In this piece, basically, Malm is asking the question or thinking about how the reason why we're caught in this situation where there's this widespread understanding that there are some serious consequences, at a global level if we continue to release carbon in this way and depend on a carbon economy. But on the other hand, we can't stop depending on a carbon economy. And the MVP and its investments and the guaranteed future of emissions is kind of like an example of that. And so Malm is saying that we can't stop investing in this terrible future, combined with doctrinaire approach to nonviolence has been a real problem. It's part of the recipe of destruction. And so basically, he wants to bring up how something like sabotage, and how there isn't actually a well-known history of using sabotage to attack both in colonial context and the contemporary context. He looks at examples of like Houthi rebels attacking the Saudi Aramco oil complex. He looks at examples of Palestinians who attacked the British colonial pipelines in the 1930s. And he has a number of other examples. But the point, though, is he's kind of like looking at the ways that people have directly attacked these infrastructures. And because this key point that he wants to make is that if there's any chance whatsoever of keeping the global temperature rise at below 1.5 degrees, then there's going to need to be some kind of immediate action according to, and he cites a number of different people. But of course, we all know that there isn't like any immediate action on the horizon, and so there has to become some kind of more drastic action, and that be sabotage. And so again, what he's doing now is thinking about sabotage and how this could, in his words, kind of twist the arm of the state and get the state to actually act in some way that reflects the interest of its constituents, rather than acting in a way that almost exclusively reflects corporate interests, um, at the exclusion of local communities, local people, and local environments and so forth. And so basically, it makes me think, and about the limitations of what Russell Chisholm and Aker are doing. I mean, certainly what they're doing is commendable. They're putting their minds and bodies and energy and time toward this very important and commendable effort. But ultimately, I kind of wonder, it's a pipeline that's 303 miles long. At what point would somebody actually attack it? It's certainly vulnerable. It certainly would be easy to do. And so you kind of wonder, at what point, what are the conditions when that will become the case? Um, Maybe it won't, but we'll see. But something worth considering, and both little pieces are worth. Sorry, the book is worth considering, and the Teen Vogue article is definitely worth considering. I'll see you back here next time.